Hi. So I just wanted to say something right before we jump into the podcast, which is that there were a lot of audio issues that I realized after the fact. I'm sorry about that. We tried to get audio stuff fixed today, but it was basically whenever anybody touched a cord, the sound it made was so I think I just need to get some new chords. That means that the audio was really messed up when I was trying to say my intro, so I want to say it here. So hi, welcome back to me talking about my version of the Marauders in podcast form with Emma. We're going to jump into a part, we're about to cut into a part where me and Emma were kind of talking about some questions that people had sent in on my Instagram. It's a lot of fun, and I really hope you enjoy today's podcast episode in spite of the fact that some of the audio is kind of not great. But yeah, sorry about that, but love you all. Thank you. We took a little quick look at them before we started recording. But I think my favorite one is somebody said, how do you eat your burritos? Like, if you eat burritos, what do you get on it? And I feel like that's the best question.
I feel like it really tells you everything.
It really tells you everything you could possibly want to know about someone. So I guess I'll go first. I don't know. Sometimes I'm not vegetarian or anything, but I don't eat a lot of meat, and so I usually don't get meat on mine. And so I get like white rice, black beans, but like cilantro rice. Mm-hmm. Cilantro lice. Oh gosh. I love lice in my food. Oh gosh. No, cilantro, rice, black beans, lettuce, pico, sour cream, cheese. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
I like pork.
Oh.
Black beans, rice. I like a lot of salsa.
Mm.
And I don't know, what else do you put on? Cheese.
Yeah. But I will sometimes get guac, but I love guac. I love avocados, but I probably am allergic to them.
Oh.
Because whenever I eat it, it like coats my throat really weird, and no matter how much I cough or I clear my throat, it takes like a full day for that feeling to go away. And so yeah, I really can't if I'm ever doing anything that involves singing, talking, anything.
I love how you like it but can't eat it, and I can't eat it but I just don't like it.
Dang.
Wow.
That really
works out.
That really do hit different. Were there any other ones that we wanted to say? Oh, Zodiac Signs. A lot of people asked for our Zodiac Signs. So I'm a Libra.
And I'm a Leo.
In case you wanted to know. Because a lot of people did. Oh, somebody also asked our opinions on tiger bread, and we have no idea what that is.
We looked it up, and it's like Dutch bread.
I mean, looks cool.
Yeah.
Those are my opinions on it. It looks cool, but I have never had it, and I'm assuming you haven't either because you didn't know what it was. Okay. Not that you're aware of. Like
someone forced me to eat tiger bread.
Yeah. Sounds like a good time. All right. I haven't looked over, like last time I really looked over what I was doing beforehand, and this time I kind of didn't. So that's going to be fun. But anyway, this is episode 2 of my version of the Marauders. If it were in his TV things, this would be episode 2. This isn't just episode 2 of the podcast. So yeah. So scene 1, I had it say scene 1 and then comma, hi, welcome to Hogwarts.
Hi.
So basically this is just breakfast and just a lot of chaos, weird flirting for some reason because of course that's just what Sirius is doing in his spare time at this moment in his life.
I thought it was going to be James.
Honestly, yeah, James too. But, and then I said, and Remus not knowing what the heck a prefect is supposed to do when the first years refuse to eat the food.
Why?
I don't know. I feel like when you go somewhere else, sometimes you're like, I don't want to eat the food. And he's like, I don't know how to react to this. And he's like freaking out. And he's like, you have to eat the food. And he's like really kind of rude to the kids. And it's not good. And then Lily has to leave eating her breakfast with like her friends, like with Julie and everybody there. And yeah, it's not a good time. Not a good morning. But I also wanted to mention, like, when all this is happening, they're kind of pranking each other. Like, yeah, they prank other people, but they're kind of pranking each other as well.
Yeah.
Like, James keeps on giving Remus horrible advice. All of this.
He's like scream.
He's like, you know what? You should just yell at them. You really gotta assert yourself here, Remus.
We love that.
Oh my gosh. But I think that like, I don't know. I said in here that like Remus ends up like turning their fingernails pink or something, just like to get back at them or something. You know, it's very much banter, and it's not, you know.
I thought you meant the first years.
No.
Okay.
That would be so bad.
You won't eat.
Well, guess you got pink fingernails now. There's nothing you can do about it. No, but I think it's a lot of, you know, the boys pranking each other. But for some reason, through this whole interaction, you know, of like the first year seeing Remus like hang out with these guys, they're like, he's cool and we are gonna eat our breakfast. Cool. And then like Lily's upset because she's like, are you kidding me? Are you literally literally? She's already so mad at Remus for simply existing at this moment in time. Yeah. Anyway, next scene. Breakfast scene is just breakfast. But then the next little part is just going through classes and stuff, and I'm kind of curious on your input about this, about what you think about where I think everybody's best at their subjects. So I think this is pretty much Fanon, that James is transfiguration, yes, for sure. And then Lily's great at charms. I think we learned potions. That she's potions and charms, I think, but charms was like her wand. When they talked about Lily's wand, they were like, great for charm work. So I think that's anyway. And then Sirius, I think he could have been fantastic at everything, but he just didn't this year. I think he pretty much almost failed every single class this year because he's like, I hate my parents, you know? Like, what are they going to do? Yeah, I don't know. I just think that this year he did not try at all. And then Peter, hear me out. I think Peter was really great at divination. Thoughts?
It reminds me of like how Ron was like really good at that.
Yeah. Well, was Ron really good at that? Because I feel like they were always doing their homework like at 2 a.m.
do well at it.
That's true, but I think he like actually genuinely enjoyed it, which is kind of foreshadowing for his character a little bit later. Oh, anyway.
What? How does that foreshadow?
Because like he kind of knows what's gonna happen.
Oh.
And so he kind of takes the.
Oh.
Yeah, he takes what side he thinks is gonna win, although that's not the side that ends up winning. Anyway, point is, what's this next bullet point? Again, haven't gone through this at all. Oh, yes, we have entered the year of Sirius and females. And Sirius is like, girls. And everybody's like, can you stop, please? Especially Remus. Remus isn't the biggest fan of that. But anyway, we're going to move on. And Lily, okay, this is a good one. So the last class of the day, I didn't explain this. So Remus doesn't take divination. He's like, that's stupid. Yeah. He's kind of a Hermione thing. You probably should have the mic closer.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. But yeah, Remus doesn't take divination. He's like, that's BS. I don't like that. So he takes arithmancy. You know who else takes arithmancy?
Lily?
Yes! He and Lily take an arithmancy. Of course, Lily doesn't know that because she's like, he's just going to go with all of his friends and take divination. And so they show up, and guess what? There's assigned seats again. And she's supposed to sit next to Remus. And she's also late to the first class, so it's like everybody's watching her. And she has to go, she sits by him, and she doesn't say anything. It's so funny. He's like, hey, Lil, like, how you doing? And she just, silence. Yeah, she's like, I'm not you being friends with the first year.
I feel like she is just a lot right now.
She's a lot. She has a lot of emotions. Okay, so then we come to her ranting about this whole situation, and she's ranting to Snape about it. And she's like, dude,
person to rant to.
I feel like he would be if you were Lily. I feel like he'd listen to Lily's rants a lot. No, but they're finally, you know, able to kind of talk to each other. And she's like totally ranting to him, but they're realizing that they don't have very many classes together. The only class that they have together is double potions with the Slytherins, because of course that's a token. You got to have that.
How else would they have potions together?
Facts. Well, no, I just mean, I think in every single year of the Harry Potter books, they had double potions with the Slytherins, right?
Who decided that?
I know, I don't know, but it was just always a thing because they always had to have Malfoy there. Anyway, but yeah, so that's definitely a thing. But they're like, okay, we're not going to see each other a lot between Lily's prefect stuff and everything else. And so they set up a secret weekly meeting time. Thursday nights at 10 p.m. Lily sneaks out because she's a prefect, and Snape, he just sneaks out. And so they just like go, I don't know where they go in the castle, but they just go and they talk like every Thursday night at 10 p.m. And that's, we're just setting that up for the rest of the year because that's where most of their talking is going to happen. Okay, so now we're getting into the fun parts of this episode, which is Peter has been fully avoiding his girlfriend since they got to school. I know. Peter, dorm room. He's like, okay, guys, so straight up, I've been completely avoiding Aspen since we got here because I legitimately don't like her anymore and she still likes me and I don't know what to do anymore. And they're like, Peter, how did this happen to you? Like, legitimately, they're like, we love you, dude. My gosh. But like, how did this happen to you? So they're trying to think of a plan to help him actually break up with her. And all I said about this is Sirius is very good at this.
I love that for him.
Sirius is like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go up to her and you're going to be like, listen, our time together has been so great, but I just see us going in different directions. Like, such
you have to do the...
in different directions. Yeah, he has to, like, have these arm motions, and Peter's like, Peter's
like, I would rather die.
Literally. I said Peter is very reluctant. No, but he's never done this before. He usually just waits for the girl to break up with him. Like, even Peter's surprised at this point. I know, Peter, she's like, this is great. So nice. He's so nice. She's so nice. Okay, but anyway, they have a lot of deliberation. The only person who's not actively involved in this conversation is Remus, because he's like, this is stupid. He does not and I'm going to sit out of this because girls are dumb. Yeah, I think I'm thinking James's style was like, you just gotta, I don't know. I feel like James gave terrible advice. Like, he was like, you just gotta tell her that you don't care.
Like, I don't care about you.
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh.
Thank you, James.
Yeah. But anyway, the next day, so they plan to do it after dinner. But the next day at breakfast, Peter is so scared to break up with her. And they're like, guys, Peter, he's literally, you're a Gryffindor. She's a Hufflepuff. Why are you scared? And he's like, it's still scary. But yeah, breakfast is horrible because Aspen tries to come and sit with them again because they decide to wait a whole day for this to happen. I said Aspen tries to sit with them. Peter almost cries.
Imagine you go over to sit with someone and they just start crying.
I know. He's really not doing well. Like, he is like they don't even know, and like the rest of them really don't know how to cover for him. But Remus ends up like pulling her away and being like, "Oh, there's like a prefect emergency," and he like takes her out of the. Yes, she's a prefect. Okay. I think I said that before. If I didn't, then Aspen is the Hufflepuff prefect. But he's like, "Oh, there's an emergency. Better go." And he like takes her out of the hall. He takes her like all the way, walks her around, and then she's like, "What's the emergency?" He's like, "What emergency?" We love she's that. Like, "Why?" Oh my gosh, they're the worst at like trying to remain calm in this situation. Okay, but anyway, going throughout the day, they have arithmancy again, and it goes, "Hi, Lily." Lily, nothing. Remus, "Hey, Lily, can I have a quill?" Lily, no. That's the whole interaction she that they have. 5 extra quills on the desk. She's like, "You can't have one." No. She's like, "You should have brought your own quill." Remus. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh my gosh. Peter straight up can't even make it to lunch. He's in the dorms. He's like dying, but James and Sirius are trying to like hype him up. They're like, "You got this, dude. You got this. I believe in you." And he's like, "I don't got this." And Remus is like, "Why do girls even exist?" He brought them all the food and then he just like left. He's like, "Guys, this is ridiculous." Yes.
He is not. No one is having.
No one's doing good. And also like, they're not good at helping Peter with this. They're just really, they're really not good with like the whole girls situation.
Are they good with any situation?
No, but finally, dinner. By some miracle, Peter has both made it to dinner and is actually prepared to break up with Aspen.
Crazy.
He doesn't eat, but then after dinner, he tells the others to leave, and then he goes and he breaks up with her. And I said, "Good job, Pete," in the notes.
Good job, Pete.
He comes upstairs and he's like, he comes upstairs and he's like upset because he's like, "Okay, guys, but like I think it went okay because like I don't know, like it was fine, like it was bad, but it was fine, and we talked about it, and I'm happy that I did it. Things are pretty good." And still, Remus is just like, why were you stressing about this if it was like chill? He's not okay. But anyway, so Remus goes and he does prefect rounds until 11:30 alone because Lily's like, "I'm not doing this with you." She's, oh my gosh. Yeah, they're like doing it at the same time, but they're like in different areas, and she like.
I thought it was
won't
just
let
gonna
him
be like they both just like happen to be walking together, and they're just like, no.
My gosh, that would be so funny. No, but yeah, so it takes a while, but then Remus gets back, and then Remus and Sirius have a little chat. They have a little chit chat, because Sirius is the only one awake, and he's like, "Hey, Remus, so here's the thing. You did not participate in today at all. Like, you were really weirded
He's like,
out.
I dragged that girl around the castle. What more do you want?
Like, literally. But he's like, I don't know. You just like, you didn't seem very interested in it. And like, Remus straight up panics. He's like, it's just that I've never had a girlfriend. And Sirius is like, yeah, that's the point. Like, why have you like not ever had a girlfriend? And he's like, Sirius, I don't know, man. Like, what do you want me to say here, dude? Yeah. Sirius is like, you've like liked a girl, haven't you? And Remus is like, yeah, I don't know what you mean by that. Remus straight up panics because, spoiler alert, Remus has a little crush on Sirius. What? This is a plot twist. It shouldn't be to anybody. But anyway, he's like freaking out. He's like, I don't know. And then we introduce this whole concept that people believe that werewolves cannot feel love.
That's rude.
Yeah. That's rude. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So then Remus covers this whole situation by being like, well, you've read all the books, right? And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, that werewolves can't feel love. So, like, what am I supposed... Like, yeah, I haven't, like, had a crush on a girl because, like, I can't. Like, what do you mean? And Sirius is like, okay, that's, like, fake. Like, you're making this up. And he's like, well, how would you know? And it's, like, a whole thing. And he's like, he's like, but you've had a crush on somebody. And he was like, well, yeah. And he's like, but how am I supposed to date somebody if I disappear every month and everything like that? And it's a whole conversation. Oh, yeah. So it's something that's in Defense Against the Dark Arts books and other false information about werewolves from the 70s and everything like that. It's really sad because he like kind of half-heartedly believes it, but he knows it's not true. It's really sad. Anyway, I kind of want to move on because I don't want to do that. Okay. But oh yeah, Sirius is like shocked that Remus even half-heartedly believes this stuff. He's like, how could you possibly do this? He's like, we're bros. Like, you're telling me you can't feel love? What about the love for your homie? Oh my gosh.
I feel like James would just like wake up and be like,
what is happening in this conversation? No, but he's like you feel friendship, and isn't that like the same thing? And he like kind of talks Remus out of it. But he's like, but without like saying like, bro, I love you, you know? like that kind of thing. Like guys trying to have a heart to heart, but they don't have a heart to heart. They're just like, anyway, I don't know if that makes any sense at all. Again, I really should have looked over these before I started explaining them. But did I? No.
I thought you were saying that James, I thought that James was just gonna like wake up and be like, I love you, Remus, and just be like,
he should.
I feel like he would.
I feel like of all the times for James to wake up, that would probably be it. That's an alternative thing. If y'all want to think that, like, go off.
choosing to think that.
Okay, you're choosing
It's my
to
version now.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. Anyway, that's that whole night. It's very kind of emotional and whatever. But after that emotional kind of night, they go downstairs. They're like, all is well. We finally
All
get
is
to
well.
have like a good time. And then Aspen's there, and the breakup did not go.
Oh, I feel so bad for Aspen.
It did not went well. Rumors about Peter are like flying because he apparently, instead of being like, hey, I don't think this is going to work out anymore, he was like, hey, I don't think this is going to work out anymore because I just don't think you're attractive anymore. And so, yeah, that's kind of how this whole episode
I feel like that's
ends.
not
Because
what you're supposed to say.
I'm pretty sure it's not what you're supposed to say. But yeah. So Peter is just, they're like, Peter, you're a bit of an idiot. He's like, isn't that exactly what you told me to do? And they're like, no. And anyway, that's kind of how this episode ends. This episode isn't as well formed as some of the other ones that I have, but I think it's a good time.
Oh my gosh.
Mostly just because there's a lot of stress. But yeah, I just love Aspen. Poor Aspen. Yeah, let's. Should we have a little break in between the episodes? Like in between the little mini episodes? Like I don't know.
Should we answer another question?
Ooh, that's a good idea. Okay, this is officially a break.
Break time.
Break time.
Woo.
Let's see. Oh, we've gotten some. Oh, let's talk about our pets. So, I have a dog named Rocky, and a dog named Buddy. Rocky is the black one that you might have seen in my videos, and Buddy is the tan one. And yeah, they're really cute.
Buddy gets scared when you clap.
Buddy gets really scared when you clap. In order to sync up
ran out of the room.
the audio and video, we've had to clap and stuff, and he
was so offended.
0 out of 10. He literally will just run away. It's so funny. Yeah. Anyway, what about your pet?
I have a dog. His name is Hercules, and his favorite food is bread.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
He just likes it.
How much bread do you give this dog?
It was like around like Christmas, and me and like my brother, we got like a plate, and we've had like some like pork on it, and then we had like I can't remember what else. I think it was just like a carrot and then like bread. And so we had like 3 plates, and he just went directly to the bread every time.
That's so good. I didn't know that about Hercules.
Fun
That's
fact.
so sweet. Okay, that's great. Okay. I feel like we can make it through one more episode today.
Okay.
And this episode, it ends with something pretty exciting. And it's gonna be pretty great. Anyway, but I don't remember anything else about this episode, which was really fun. Anyway, I need to be writing these closer to when we film. But anyway, the dorms before breakfast, scene 1, episode 3 of my version of the Marauders. Scene 1, dorms before breakfast. I've said all this about 50 million times at this point. But they're so chaotic. Can you just imagine these 4 guys in the morning before things happen? Like, no. But okay, this is how I picture it going down. James wakes up at like 6 a.m. Every morning, for sure. And they don't have to go like eat or do anything until like 8 in my mind. And so he literally goes, and because he is the Quidditch player that he is, he goes and he works out in the morning at 6 a.m.
I love that for him.
Because that's just who he is. And the others just hate him for it. They're like, it's so annoying. He wakes up way too early, and he like low-key wakes everybody else up when that happens. But no, he goes and he like runs like on the castle grounds. Like he's a runner. He's
Imagine
a runner.
you,
He's
like,
a track
wake up
star.
and you look outside, and there's this one kid just like...
I'm sure that girls do that. I'm sure that there are girls at Hogwarts who would just wake up and be like, "Man, look at that man
Look at him go. Like, that's part of other people's morning routine is just to watch him just, like, sprint back and forth, and they're like...
My morning routine. I wake up and I go to the window where I see tiny little James Potter running.
Sprint fast.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Why is that so funny? Anyway, but when he gets back, he's like so loud when he gets back because he's like, I'm ready for the day, and everybody's so mad
No one
about
else
it.
is ready
They're
for
like,
the day.
we hate this. Even when he's trying to not be loud, he's always so loud. And so then as soon as he gets back, Sirius has to get up because Sirius cannot sleep if there's other noise. And once Sirius is awake, You know those people who, like, once they're up, they're just go, go, go. That is Sirius through and through. Peter is a bit of the same way, but, like, in the sense that he wakes up when James gets back. But he's still tired for, like, a solid hour, like me. Like, I can't function unless I've been awake for a full hour. It's a curse.
It's a curse.
And then Remus is a very light sleeper, so he, like, kind of wakes up when James leaves at 6, but then when James is back, even when everybody else is awake, he, like, stays in bed out of spite.
He just doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to get up, and so he gets up, like, literally 5 minutes before breakfast every single day.
That is reasonable.
I feel like that. I had to include that because I'm like, it's important to know. This happens every single morning.
Every single morning.
Every
There's
morning.
just a quick morning routine.
Mm-hmm. But now, in the mornings, because I don't know if you've done any research on what it takes to be an animagi, but
I haven't.
dang, Emma, I can't
I'm
believe
sorry.
you. But there is a spell that you have to do every morning at sunrise and every afternoon at sundown. So this was like their typical morning routine, but now it's a little bit changed because when James
like
gets up,
his
he's
is
like, guys,
already-
we all have to get up and we have to do this, and then they all go back to sleep. And Remus, like, wakes up and he basically does this whole thing with them, except not really. You know, like, he wakes up.
He's just there. for,
He's
like,
there. He's there for moral
support.
support. He feels bad making them all, like, get up for him, you know? But he can't obviously really participate in it because they don't know what would happen if a werewolf tried to become an
Yeah.
animagi. That would kind of... bad things might happen. We don't know. But anyway, so now that they all get up pretty early, they kind of have some spare time in the morning. And what they've been spending it on is the Marauders map. So at this point in their lives at Hogwarts, I think that they've mapped everything out, and they figured out how to track Filch, but the spell that they use isn't super
Accurate?
reliable. Like, it doesn't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it only lasts like a week, and so they have to, like, find a time to cast this random spell on Filch, like, literally every single week. It's not great.
How old is Filch? Like,
I don't know. I feel like in the things he was pretty old, so he's
always
pretty
there.
He's pretty young. I don't know. Maybe it's not Filch.
He's just like immortal at the castle.
Of course,
can't
there is
die.
one immortal being, and it is Filch.
There always has to be at least one.
There's
And it's
only
the
there's
non-magical person.
yes. There's only ever one because he's immortal, so he'll be there forever. Anyway,
He's
point
always
is,
there.
I don't know. Maybe it's not Filch. Maybe it's another caretaker or whatever. Anyway, somebody that would get them in trouble. But Sirius has a dream where they can see everybody on the map all at once. The others agree that would be pretty cool.
The others agree.
They agree with the dream. So they're trying to figure out all this stuff. But James is actually the best at researching. Like, it's his secret passion here. Like, he
I
tries
love
to be all
that.
cool, but he's like low key a nerd. So it's pretty good. So yeah,
He wears glasses.
I know. What kind of athlete wears glasses? Imagine
Athletes
that.
cannot wear glasses.
0 out of 10. They can't do it. Anyway, so yeah, so like he agrees that, like, okay, today I'm like gonna go to the library during lunch and try and figure this stuff out. So they have, next scene, they're in potions. They have double potions with the Slytherins, as mentioned before, and it's their first day of pairing up. So Lily actually gets to pair up with Snape. So she's like, this is pretty chill, like, sweet. But there are some issues with that. The issues being that there are other Slytherins in the class, and so Snape is like, what? I'm not friends with her, but like he's also to Lily trying to be like, yeah, like we're chill, like I don't know what you're talking about. It's so awkward and weird and bad. And like, yeah, it's not great. And for once in his life, James is not paying attention to Lily because he just found out like one spell that might actually work on the map. And so he's like not paying attention to class because he's like trying to figure that out. But yeah, at one point Snape straight up just leaves Lily during class. And just goes and talks with the other people, and Lily's like mad at the end of class, and Snape straight up doesn't really realize why.
I would be mad if someone ditched me.
I know, but Snape doesn't see that he really did. He's like, I didn't like ditch you, like I was still like your partner throughout the class. And she's like,
you just straight up left.
You're not understanding it. Okay, so next scene, James actually ends up skipping divination in order to go to the library. And Remus doesn't take divination, so he has a free period, and so he joins him, and they're having a good time. They're practicing like new variations of the spell on each other, because they're not like trying to find a spell. They're straight up going into the theory of how spells work, so that they can make up a spell to track people. And so, but as I've mentioned in one of my TikToks, they get very loud when they're together. I just always see that happening with James and Remus. Like, they don't mean to be, but they just start getting really loud, and so they get kicked out of the library like real fast. But they're still they find one spell that either is going to go really, really good or really, really bad. And so they keep on playing rock, paper, scissors to see who's casting the spell and who's receiving it. It's really not good, but I felt like it's kind of pointless, but I felt like I really needed to include that because I feel like that's just so funny. Okay, so now we're going to get into Lily talking about how angry she was at Snape with Mary and Julie. And so these are like her Gryffindor friends. I feel like we haven't talked about them very much, but they're
like Mary is like people have like heard of her.
Yeah, people know who Mary is, but I still kind of have a different version of Mary. But anyway, Lily's talking to both of them, and she's like, guys, like telling them about what happened in potions. And Mary's like, yeah, we've been trying to tell you this for a while. We don't like Snape. And she's like, okay, he's like not that bad. And they're like, you were
complaining about him.
You were just complaining about him. And like, you know, Lily's like, okay, but like he's genuinely like not like a terrible person. And Julie's like, yeah, like in first year, but he's definitely changing and you're just not seeing it. And Lily very much disagrees. But then Lily's like, okay, but like at least he's not as bad as like James Potter. And Mary's like, facts, like James is so annoying. And then they kind of,
she's like, I have to see him running every morning when I wake up.
She's like, how obnoxious is he? He goes for runs every morning. Oh,
Mary wakes up early out of spite just to watch him run.
She's like, she has a pair of binoculars outside, like, and she's like, I hate this man.
I love that for her.
No, but I think just a lot of people just think he's very annoying at this moment in time. But noticeably, Julie does not really like. She's like, oh yeah, he's kind of, but she doesn't bash on him like the others do. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, scene 5. So after classes, James and Remus are still trying to practice these different spells on each other, but. Now it's everybody practicing the spells on each other.
I feel like I need to know who won rock, paper, scissors.
I feel like it went back and forth. Like some, they won some, they lost some. But now they're doing it with all 4 of them. And they're still kind of very iffy about all of these. But only one of the spells gets Peter sent to the hospital wing with a bloody nose. Only one. But yeah, they have to like make an excuse to Madame Pomfrey. And they're like, he punched himself in the nose. What can we say?
It happens.
It was an accident. But they finally got one at the end of the night. They got one of them to stay on Sirius. And so they're like, okay, They're not quite sure how long it's gonna last, but it seems to like not be going away with any other counter spells that they try and put on him. Like it seems to be permanent, and they're like, okay, so he's on the map. Chill. So it seems to be great, and so then they all do it on each other, and it's pretty good. But they have to wait and see if it works out. But spoiler alert, it'll work out. Anyway, then it is a Thursday night. So after all of this, for the tracking spell, like Sirius is just kind of walking around Hogwarts with the map, like making sure that it all works. He's just chilling.
Just like watching himself.
Yes, literally. But then he runs into Regulus, and we're gonna get some of them talking to each other. So they run into each other, and Regulus is alone, and so they kind of say hi. And they talk pretty politely. They're like on civil terms when they're at school. I think at home they're pretty chill with each other, honestly. Like they don't agree on a lot, but they would rather just avoid the conversation.
Not have to argue.
Yeah, just not argue and just kind of be more chill with each other. But they do kind of gossip about their family drama a good amount. So like at this moment
like,
in time,
oh my gosh, did you hear about that?
no, like seriously, they're like
seriously.
No, but they're both talking there, and then Regulus is like, so did you hear about Narcissa's wedding? And he's like, oh no, I didn't. He's like, yeah, you didn't, because she didn't invite any of the younger cousins. And Sirius is like, how much do you want to bet it's just so that I don't get invited? And Regulus is like, honestly,
He's like,
a
yes.
lot of gold. I would bet a lot of gold on that. And so then they're like, that was kind of their polite conversation, and they're kind of about to go their separate ways. And then Regulus blurts out, you know, I'm going to try out to be a Seeker on the Slytherin Quidditch team. And he's like, really? He's like, you are? And he's like, yeah, like, I don't know. And it's kind of really out of character for him to just kind of say something like that. But Sirius is like really happy for him. And so then they start making plans to meet up late at night to practice together, because he's like, neither of us can ever be caught, first of all, associating with each other, but second of all, helping the other team. But yeah, Sirius is like, I'm going to help you become Seeker. So they do that. But also, since it's Thursday night, 10 p.m., you know what it means. So it's just Lily and Snape. And so they basically talk to each other, and she's like, yeah, I really didn't like how you freaking ditched me today. And he was like, how did I ditch you today? And she's like, boy. And so they kind of like, they go back and forth a lot, but Snape ends up apologizing at the end, which is good. And then they just go back to talking, and that's pretty much that. I guess I didn't write a whole lot about that. Oh yeah, and then we get to scene 7, the dorms. Everybody's back in bed. Everybody's pretty much asleep, kind of. Anyway, 11 p.m., a thunderstorm. And it's like, okay, it's a thunderstorm, like, chill out. But the thing about thunderstorms is that that's the last step to them becoming animagi. They have to be doing that spell until a thunderstorm happens, and then they have to go and they have to like drink this potion that they've made and do another spell and stuff like that. It's very important, and they almost completely like ignore it and disregard it. And then Sirius is like, guys, they're like, what? He's like, it's a storm. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's a storm. And they like run out. They're trying to, get the invisibility cloak, and they're trying to like run around and do everything. But then they go to that large passageway that Sirius mentioned a lot, that's behind the silver mirror, I believe. Do you remember in the books, he's like the roomy passageway under so-and-so?
I have no idea.
I remember he talked about it, but I'm not entirely sure where it was, so somebody's gonna have to correct me on that. But anyway, Remus like doesn't know how to react to anything that's happening here. So, because he's like been involved, but he's like basically been pretending to do it, and they're actually doing it.
Yeah.
And they're all like, holy crap, this is about to happen. So they're all in the passage. Oh yeah, there's like vials of something that they have to drink. And so they're like, okay, we're going to do it. But one of the instructions is to make sure that you're alone when it happens, because like you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what kind of animal you're about to be. So they do. So Remus goes out in the hallway under the cloak. Peter goes into an abandoned classroom. James goes into a big storage room off of the hallway, and Sirius stays in the passageway. And so this is like terrible for Remus.
I know.
Like listening to this happening.
Like,
also, like in the instructions on Pottermore, it's like it's very painful. So like not fun to listen to, I'm sure. Also, he doesn't know if they're all about to die.
True.
He doesn't know anything. He's like panicking.
Reasonably so.
Yeah. Like it would be, yeah, but it's so bad. But then it's quiet from Sirius's place, and he's like, "Oh gosh,
Is he dead?
he's like, I don't know what's happening." And he waits for what he thinks is like a really long time, but it's like 15 seconds. And then he goes in, and then he sees a big dog. Oh my gosh. And he looked at him and he just knew it was Sirius. Like it's a dog, but like it looks like Sirius, you know? Like it was so immediately perfect. And they just kind of both stare at each other for a while. And then the dog just like kind of wags its tail, and it like makes Remus burst out laughing because it's just such a serious black thing to do. Okay, and then he's like, "Okay, come on, we're gonna go look at the others." And then I have a bullet point. It just says Sirius walked like he had never had legs before. Have you ever seen those dogs walking in like socks?
Yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I picture him first walking like. I just think it would be so funny. Anyway, they go into Peter's room next door, and they're like, and they only like see his clothes and nothing else. And they're like, "Guys, where did Peter go?" He's like, "He's gone. We lost Peter, didn't we?" And it like a full minute goes by, and there's like a rat that's there. It's like trying to get their attention, but they're like, "We lost Peter." It's not good. But then they realize that the rat is Peter, and all is well. And then they go and they find James. And he's just too big. Like, he went in the smallest room. He went in the storage room, and he's like, "This is not good." And Remus just laughs at him. Yeah, and it's just a good time. But then the dog hears something, and he's like, "Oh, no."
Woof.
And so then he's telling them, he's like, "I got better hearing now, besties. What's happening?" And so, running around, they're trying to hide. They're trying to get under the cloak, and, like, just basically James had to go back in the storage room, and like they got the dog like under the yes. They don't know how to transform back very well. Apparently that's a difficult process as well. And so they like shove him back in the storage room, and then they put Peter and Sirius under the cloak, but then like Remus is just there. I know, and so then Lily comes around the corner because she's been with Snape.
That was the worst.
She's been with Snape the whole time, and so she
and
comes
he's just like, "Hey."
I know, and she's like, "It's past curfew, go to bed." And he's like, "I'm a prefect," and she's like, "So am I." And I put in parentheses, this is literally just the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. Yeah. But they're both like, "Okay, why are you here then?" And Lily's like, "I'm not telling you why I'm here. Why are you here? You're always the ones doing something suspicious." He's like, "You're also literally out late. Like, neither of us are supposed to be here. What is happening?" So then they both just agree to disagree and go away. But they're both really curious about what the other one was doing.
I feel like Remus had more going on than Lily.
I know. But imagine him just trying to be so, like, nonchalant.
He's like, "Hey."
Well, there's literally...
And then, like, in, like, the door next to him, you could just hear, like... just,
James
like, crashes.
just running into things.
She's like, what's going on back there?
Oh yeah, it's like that iCarly thing when he's like, "What do you got there?" A smoothie. That's literally Remus in this situation. So yeah, but anyway, they decide to leave. Remus gets the animals. None of them know how to walk yet, basically. They're all just like babies. They're fully grown, but they're acting like children. But anyway, they try and transform back. It takes them a while, but they end up doing it, and they're so excited. And James is like, "Why was Lily out at night?" And Remus is like, "I don't know, man, but at least we didn't get caught." And that's the end of the episode. I really like that episode.
I do. That was my favorite one so far.
Yeah. I just love the idea of
It's just so
I
chaotic.
mean, like, I know, that's how it had to happen, though. Like, do you think they became Animagi and, like, didn't have a close call? Like, no. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think that James just being too large. in general.
like they go into like the giant classroom and there's like a tiny little rat, and then they go into like the tiny little closet and there's just
Yeah, I don't know what. Oh my gosh. I definitely meant to have a moment in the podcast where I talked about what I think that they thought that they were going to turn into.
oh.
But I don't know for sure. So that's probably why I didn't put it in. But what do you think that like they thought that they were going to turn into? Like when they're like going through this process and thinking of stuff.
James probably thought he was gonna be like a lion.
He's like I am
Gryffindor.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I feel like Peter thought that he was going to be a bird.
Yeah.
You know? Like he would just think that that's so cool, and I agree. That would be a sweet like animagus form. Like you just get to
You could,
fly.
like, fly?
Like that would be so sweet. But I don't know. I can't think that Sirius ever thought that he was going to be anything except for a dog. You know? Like I feel like just dog.
like it was either like that or like some outrageous like like an orca.
Yeah, I've always wondered, what if you're an animagus and your like animagus form is like a whale? Like what are you gonna do? Like you just transform and it's like you're a whale
you could,
now.
like, run an aquarium and you could do tricks and stuff.
Oh my word.
What else are you
Emma.
gonna do?
I don't know, but that's certainly not what I was thinking. Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, I think this wraps up this episode. Yeah, okay, the next one's funny though. The next one is the introduction of Jeffrey. Have you met Jeffrey?
No.
Jeffrey is
Why do you say like, have you met Jeffrey?
because I feel like I've told you about it. I'll have to tell you about it off camera,
Okay.
but he's kind of my favorite character. He is also not human. And yeah, so yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, I guess. I'm currently having a contest for artwork, and me and Emma have really
Yeah.
been enjoying that.
I've seen some of them and they're all so good.
I know, but we're gonna have it so that we can actually have like podcast artwork that like goes up on Spotify and other places and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been very exciting, and also, I might even be getting intro and outro music. Have I told you that?
I saw like,
Yeah. So my
I saw
brother,
something about
my
it.
brother is a musician, and he makes a lot of cool synth stuff. He also plays guitar and he does a bunch of really cool stuff. But he might be doing that for me, so that would be fun. But yeah, so be on the lookout for those things. Thank you for watching.
Comment what you like on your burrito.
Yes. Comment what you like on your burrito. Subscribe, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye. Okay.